Yo, it's the MOPOWERZ, and we are back again, this time on another fantastic TUESDAY with more great information with the World 16 Crucified Saviors by Kersey Graves. And if this is your first time watching the show, I ask that you share the information with relatives, friends, co-workers, anyone that you come into contact with. It is a magnificent way to jumpstart your conversation. And as I stated, we are continuing this conversation, this audio book, this book reading of the World's 16 Crucified Saviors. And if you've been paying attention and keeping up with things, let me get a drink here before we get started. We left off on chapter 31, page 137, and we did the 60 parallels, meaning comparisons and exactness to the Essenes and Christ, okay? And if you all are not familiar who the Essenes are, the Essenes is another sect of the Jews, okay? You had the Pharisees, you had the Sadducees, and you had the Essenes. You all need to go look up the Essenes if you don't know anything about them. We went over that in the last video and the video before that, okay? But we're going to jump right back in on page 137 where we left off, okay? 137 where we left off. And this is after the parallel scripture, the Confucian golden rule as taught by Christ. This parallel might be extended much further, but we will proceed to present the reader with a general description of the S&M and furnished us, and this is furnished to us, and this lived and has lived to 60 AD, and who himself was the Essene Jew. Did y'all get that? We're going to go back over that. This parallel might be extended much further, but we will proceed to present the reader with a general description of the Essene. Now, we're talking about this Christ figure Essene, okay? As furnished to us by Philo Josephus and some Christians writer. Philo, who was born in Alexandria in 20 BC and lived to 60 AD, and was put himself in the Essene Jew, in his account of them says, they do not lay up treasures of gold or silver, but provide themselves only with the necessities of life. Paul, afterwards, having caught the same spirit, advises the same course of life, having food and raiment, therewith be content. Contentment of the mind they regarded as the greatest of riches. They make no instruments of war. They repudiate every inducement to covetousness. None are held as slaves, but are all free and serve each other. They are instructed in piety and holiness, righteousness, economy, and etc. They are guided by a threefold rule: love of God, love of virtue, and love of mankind. Of their love of God, they gave innumerable demonstrations, which is found in their constant and unalterable holiness throughout the whole of their lives, their avoidance of oaths and falsehood, and their firm belief that God is the source of all good, but of nothing evil. Of their love of virtue, they give proof in their contempt for money, fame, and pleasures, their continence, easy satisfying of their wants, their simplicity, modesty, etc. Their love of man is proved by the benevolence and equality and their having all things in common, which is beyond all deception. Their reverence and take care of the aged as children do their parents. Not in these days. These old skank kids we got. I'm serious. You got kids right now beating up their parents, taking their ATM cards, slapping them, telling their parents that they ain't nothing. Children nowadays are not taking care of parents. And that's sad because a parent would do anything for their child, but children of today are not willing to do anything for their parents. That's 100. And I got kids, okay? You can't tell me, okay? Josephus, okay? 37 AD, and who was also at one time a member of the Essene Brotherhood. What? Did y'all get that? I hope y'all wrote that down. Furnishes another fragmentary account of the Essenes in his Jewish wars, of which the following is the substance. They love each other more than others. That is, are partial to the household of faith. They despite riches and have all things in common, so that there is neither abjectness of poverty nor distinction of riches among them. They change neither garments nor shoes till they are worn out or become unfit for use. They neither buy or sell among themselves. Their purity is extraordinary. They never speak about worldly matters before sunrise. They are girt about with a linen apron and have a baptism of cold water. They eat but one kind of food at a time and commence with a prayer, and the priest may grace before anyone eats, that is, breaks and blesses as Christ did. They also return thanks after eating and then put off their white garments. Strangers were made welcome at their tables without money and without price. They give food to the hungry and the needy and show mercy to all. They curb their passions, restrain their anger, and claim to be ministers of peace. An oath they regard as worse than perjury. They excommunicate offenders. They condemn finery in dress. Though condemning in most solemn terms oath, members were admitted to the secret brotherhood by an oath. And that is in parentheses, see thou, tell no man, said Christ, a secret society, which we really knew about because according to the book, the Bible, it wasn't religion that Christ was bringing in. So I don't understand why people continue to call themselves Christians when Christianity is a religion. But according to the book that you read, that some book, Christ was bringing in a new world order, not a religion. Now, you may say, well, his religion was to be a servant of God. Okay, well, if that's a religion, well, then what do you have today? Because your religion is not what he did, according to the book. Because I don't subscribe to any of it. I tell you that it's all garbage. But for those of you who are involved in that, you need to ask yourself, why religion? Why religion and not bringing in the new government? They don't kill you for bringing in a new religion. I'm going to say that again. They do not kill you for bringing in a new religion, even though I know that they killed that apostle for the Mormon Latter-day Saints, Joseph Smith. Yeah, they killed that man in Illinois. Yeah, back in the 19th century. Yeah, y'all know who killed him. They mobbed the prison where they was holding him at and everything. Him and you have to read the story for yourself. Okay. Anyway, back to this one. They taught of duty, of mortifying the flesh. Excuse me, we're going to go a little bit back. They endured pain with heroic fortitude and regarded an honorable death as better than long life. They read and study their holy scriptures from youth, often prophecy, as it was very seldom they failed in their predictions. Dr. Ginsburg's testimony abridged is as follows. The Essenes had a high appreciation of the inspired law of God. The highest aim of their lives was to become fit temples of the Holy Ghost, also to perform miraculous cures and to be spiritually qualified for forerunners of the Messiah. They taught the duty of mortifying the flesh and the lust thereof, and to become meek and lowly in spirit. They answered by yea, yea, and nay, nay. scrupulously avoiding oaths. They avoided impure contact with the heathen and the world's people and lived retired from the world. Being in number about 4,000, they strove to be like the angels of heaven. There were nor rich or poor, or masters and servants among them. They lived peaceably with all men. A mysterious silence was observed while eating. A solemn oath was required when becoming a member of the secret order, which required what? Three things: love of God, merciful justice to all men, and to avoid the wicked and help the righteous. And three, purity of character, which implied love of truth, hatred of falsehood, and strict observance of the mysteries of godliness to outsiders, that is, heathen and publicans. They endured suffering for righteousness' sake with rejoicings, even sought it, regarding the body as a prison for the soul. They desired the time to come to escape it. They recognized 8 different stages of spiritual growth and perfection. They recognize 8 spiritual growth and development in spirituality. 1 is bodily purity, 2 is celibacy, 3 is spiritual purity, 4, the suppression of anger. You know we ain't got that, okay? And malice, and the cultivation of a meek, lowly spirit. 5, the attainment of true holiness. 6, becoming fit temples for the Holy Ghost. 7, the ability to perform miraculous cures and raise the dead. 8, becoming forerunners of the Messiah. And finally, they took a solemn vow to exercise piety towards God and justice to all men, to hate the wicked, assist the God to keep clear of theft and unrighteous gains, to conceal none of their mysteries or godliness from each other, or disclose them to others. Great is the mystery of the godliness. See, thou tell no man. They were to walk humbly with God, shun bad society, shun the bad society, forgive their enemies, sacrifice their passions, and crucify the lust of the flesh. They disregard bodily suffering, even glorified in martyrdom, preaching and singing to God amid their sufferings, but in their domestic habits, they were extremely filthy. They were extremely filthy. Sound like the people that we know today. Sound like a whole lot of people that we know today. Sound like people that rule the world today. In fact, about it, that's why Hitler went on a rampage. In fact, about it, they got this rabbi here on YouTube that states that the Hitler went apeshit on the Jews because of their filthiness and how they were living and running a evil society. You don't have to believe me. Do your research. Just go on YouTube, type it in. Rabbi said that Hitler killed the Jews because of. Hey, they took that video down that I had, and that rabbi said that. But what can I do, right? What can I do now? I'm just saying, I'm on their platform. It's sad that you have to. Sometimes you can't use context. You can't cover up. You just got to say what you got to say. And sometimes, like I say, when you tell the truth, there's a price for it. So if you're going to tell the truth, be expecting a price for the truth that you say. And with Godspeed, it is a hopes that you can prevail against falsehood. Because falsehood is what now rules the world. Falsehood, I'm just saying. We're getting back to the book, right? They were extremely filthy. They wore their clothes until they became ragged, filthy, and offensive, never changing them until they were wore out. Their food consisted of bread and water, and wild roots and fruits of palm trees. they enjoin their duty not only of forgiving their enemies, but of seeking to benefit them, and of even blessing the destroyer who took life and property. Such was the religion. Such was the religion, meaning be a sucker. Be a sucker, even unto death. Just like your Lord and Savior Jesus was a sucker unto his death, because his daddy set him up according to the book. Think for yourself, read for yourself, see for yourself. If you have a different explanation than what Reverend Porkchop is giving you, if you have a different standpoint or a different perspective than Reverend Porkchop and Deacon Porkchop and Sister Mary Porkchop over there, make sure you let them know your opinion. Because remember, religion people, the believers, don't like thinkers. Thinkers are a threat to the believers. Now, such the religion, such the moral system, such the devout piety, and such the practical lives of the Essenian Jews, a religious sect which flourished in Alexandria and Judea several hundred years before the birth of Christ, and went out of history the hour Christ came in. It's like a game or a play. The Essenes exit out and Jesus exits in, he enters. One exit, one enters. A change of rule, a change of power, a change of authority. That's what threatens government. When they see the power in that person, when they see the charismatic ways that this person can have many followers, like Malcolm X, like Elijah Muhammad, like any black man. Yeah, like Fred Hampton, like Huey Newton, like Bunchy Carter, etc., etc., etc. All of those black revolutionaries from the Panther Party. It was a new world, but what was sad about it, we tried to have our own world inside their world. But Satan rules the world, and Satan won't let you have no peace. And you must remember, who's running all of this? Who's in power right now? They may not be the Essene sect, but they are those people, right? I'm just saying, right? Now, as foregoing exposition shows, the Essenes and Christianity are most strikingly alike in all of their essential features. That the former system contains nearly every important doctrine and precept of the Christian religions. The question occurs here as one of the momentumous import. How is this striking resemblance, this identity of character, and the two religions to be accounted for? Does it not go far toward proving that Christianity is an outgrowth? Christianity is an outgrowth? It's an outgrowth from what? The Essenes. I'm just saying. A legitimate offspring of Judaism, Essenism? Indeed, are we not absolutely driven to such a conclusion? Let us briefly recite some of the important facts brought to light by the investigation of the character and history of these two religions, and see if those facts do not bring them together and wield them as one system, as one and the same religion. Both are alike, and Essenism is much older than Christianity. Both religions are an outgrowth of Judaism. Both are well known or were taught in Judea and in Alexandria. Joseph, living in Judea, and Philo in Alexandria. Neither of them speaks of Christianity or refers to any such religion by that name, and yet both describe a religion inculcating the same doctrines or moral precepts, which they call Essenism. Now, if you don't know what inculcating means, that means that they are one, welded, interwoven. I'm just saying. And the further we go, which I believe is on the next page, we're going to have a lot of comparison of the same. It is not very conclusive proof that Essenism was only another name for Christianity, that it had not changed its name to Christianity. That famous standard author, Mr. Gibbon, was evidently of this opinion. Yeah, that's what it says. I'm just reading what it says in the book. I know sometimes that it sounds like I'm not reading the book, like I'm missing words. I'm reading what the book says, and I'm going to go back to that sentence. That famous standard author, Mr. Gibbon, was evidently of this opinion when he said, whether indeed is first of that sect, the Essenes took the names of the Christian when the appellation of the Christians had yet nowhere announced, it is by no means necessary to discuss. Here's evidence that Gibbons believed that the Essenes, after having borne that name for centuries, changed the appellations to Christians. Now you must remember. Now, why would they do that? Because, if according to this, if the Essenes left out when Jesus came in, which was the Christianity thing came 400 years after Jesus' death. Okay, well, do your time thing. Do a time guideline on that. It's like if the Essenes were here and exited when Jesus came, and Jesus' religion didn't become Christianity until after 400 years. So that's a total of 433 years, because he really only lived to be 33, right? So are they the same Jews who changed it? And why would they bring an old order back if they're giving you a new order? Sounds like to confuse you. Sounds like to confuse you. And who did this? The Jews. The Jews. Because the Jews gave you your religion. The Jews have given the world religion. In fact about it, the Jews get their stuff from Orientalists. Just like Muslims get their stuff from Orientalists. I'm just saying. And when it comes down to cycles, God's having cycles, and all of these Senatoni saviors coming every so often in these cycles, 6,000 years, 9,000 years, 25,000 years for the Nation of Islam. Even Elijah Muhammad got some of his teachings from Hinduism, Orientalism, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Even Judaism. Think about that. Anyway, thanks, Mo. And we will find still stronger language than this in the writings of the same author, which is Mr. Gibbons, expressive of this opinion. And a note to chapter 25, he says, it is probable that the Repeatus, meaning Essenes, changed their name to Christians, as some writers affirm, and adopted new articles of faith. Just as I said prior, I didn't say it like he said it, but I said it I gave you the same demonstration. I know, y'all say Mo's crazy. No, Mo not crazy. Mo been studying for decades. You all just ain't been ready. I'm just joking, you all. I still learn from a lot of people, straight up. A lot of people on YouTube at that, straight up. I met a lot of my master teachers on YouTube, and one of them is um, Mother Frances Cress Welsing. Even though I read her book, The Isis Paper, way before, but didn't have a vision of her, like a video of her until social media, YouTube. So thanks, YouTube, and many others. But anyway, um, it is probable that the therapeutics essence changed their name to Christians, and some writers affirm and adopted new articles of faith. Here, the position is assumed that the Christian religion is an outgrowth of Essenism, that is merely a continuation of that religion under a changed name with a slight modification of its creed. And then we have the declaration of Christian writers expressed in the most positive terms. The Essenium and Christianity were the same religion, just as I said. Name being used at an earlier period. Here, Eusebius, a standard ecclesiastical writer of the 4th century, he asserts positively those ancient therapeutics, meaning Essenes, were Christians, and their ancient writings were our gospels. Did y'all get that? Hark, hark, my good Christian reader. Here is one of your own sworn witnesses testifying that the Essenes originated and established the Christian religion, the religion now known by that name. Will you give it up, or will you not give it up? We have other testimony of similar characters rendering the proposition still stronger. Robert Taylor declares the learned Basnage has sworn that the Essenes were really Christians centuries before Christ, and that they were actually in possession of those very writings which are now our gospels and epistles. And then we have the declaration of the author of Christ, the Spirit, that the Christians were the latter Essenes, that is, the Essenes of the time of Eusebius under a changed name, that name having been made at Antioch, where the disciples were first called Christians. Okay? The same writer suggests that their sacred books are our sacred books. They say that their sacred books are our sacred books. That is, if you're a Christian. We will now hear Eusebius again. It is highly probable that their Essenes, ancient commentaries, which Philo says the Essenes have, are the very Gospels and writings of the apostles. Based on his conclusion, he calls the Essenes the first heralds of the gospel. I find it therefore most probable, says Mr. Welting, that Jesus and John belong literally in the society of the Essenes. I hope y'all getting this here. This is some good stuff. Okay. And that the New American Encyclopedia furnishes us with the testimony of a very able English author of the late century, De Quincey, who concurs with all the writers cited above. Mr. De Quincey, it says, identified that the Essenes as being the early Christians. The early Christians were known as the Essenes. Such testimony coming from such a source is entitled to much weight, and to the same effect it is the testimony of Bishop Marsh, who admits that our Gospels were drawn from those of the Essenes. Okay? Thus, for historical writers, and you must remember that no historical writer in the day of Jesus saw Jesus resurrect or none of that. But this writer here, okay, because we're just talking about his stories, I just want to throw that in, okay? Thus, historical writers, we will now lay before the reader some historical facts fraught with unanswerable logical potency and pointing to the same conclusion. It is a fact, and one of deep logical import, and tending to corroborate the conclusion of some of the writers cited above, who tells us that the Christian Gospels were first composed by the Essenes, that the language in which those Gospels were originally written was Greek, the language in which the Alexandrian Essenes always wrote, while the evangelical writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, being illiterate fishermen, could have had no knowledge of any but the Jewish, or but their own mother tongue, and at least it is susceptible of satisfactory proof that they never wrote in any other language. I'm going to read that again, okay, because I had a tongue twister. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, being illiterate fishermen, being illiterate fishermen, could have had no knowledge of any but of the Jewish, their own mother tongue, and at least it is susceptible of satisfactory proof that they never wrote in any other language. You know, it amazes me because all of the disciples and some of these San Antonio saviors were illiterate. Even Prophet Muhammad, who they say is Prophet Muhammad, he was illiterate. He could not read or write, but he could understand the languages of the birds. Man, y'all better stop playing with me. Y'all better stop playing with me. And we'll get to that later. That's a whole nother topic. I won't get off into it. But we're going to get back to this book here, okay? The works of several authors are now lying at our elbow who express the conviction unequivocally that the Gospels were copied, if not translated, from other older writings. Mr. Lee Clerk, one of the ablest writers of his time, maintained this position, and he did it ably. Another writer, a Mr. Hatfield, was awarded a prize in 1793 by the Theological Faculty of Göttingen for an essay in which the position was ably argued that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not the authors of the books which bear their names, but were mere copyists. I hope y'all writing that down. I've been telling you all that. Dr. Lessings and others concur with him in this conclusion. A circumstance confirming this verdict is found in the fact that the word church occurs in our Gospels, which were written before such an institution was established by those who were then called Christians. Go tell it to the church. Matthew chapter 18, verse 17, was uttered before any steps had been taken by the then representative of the Christian faith to organize such a body and evidence this. Evidence this. That's what it said. I'm going to read that again. Go tell it to the church. Matthew 18, verse 17, was utterly before any steps had been taken by the then representatives of the Christian faith to organize such a body and evidence this. Weird. That he alluded to the church of the Essenes, and there were no other churches in existence at that time, which leaves the inference patent and irresistible that he and his disciples were Essenes, perhaps then under the changed name of Christians. So all of you Christian people out there, you are really an Essene versus a Christian, because I'm just saying, historically, and you have to remember that the Jews gave you the religion. And people don't understand the religion. They just think that a religion popped up out of nowhere. If you find a new religion, it is copied from another religion. From one religion springs other religions. All of them just about have the same principles. Even the Catholic people, still have some of the same concepts as Muslims, and so forth and so forth. Okay. Which leaves the inference patent and irresistible that he and his disciples were Essenes, perhaps then under the changed name of Christians. Centuries prior to the era, the Essenes had not only churches, but their whole ecclesiastical nomenclature of bishops, deacons, elders, priests, disciples, scriptures, gospels, epistles, psalms, hymns, mysteries, allegory, and etc. If Christianity was reestablished in the days of Christ and his apostles, they had nothing to originate because it was all copied. It was all there before. Oh my God. This book is mind-blowing, okay? And there's many other books that you can go off to, but we'll read them as we go along, okay? They had nothing to originate, either with their respective doctrines, precepts, church polity, or ecclesiastical terms, all being established for them centuries before that era. With these facts in view, it seems impossible that the two religious orders, Essenes and Christians, could have been in existence at the same times as separate institutions. The former must have ended when the latter commenced. Like I said, Essenes exit, Christ enters. Okay? Josephus says the Essenes were scattered far and wide and were in every city, being quite numerous in Judea in his time. But he makes no reference to any sect or religious order by the title of Christian, a strong inferential evidence upon sound priori reasoning that Christianity as yet was selling under another name. Josephus, yes, Josephus, not Joseph. Some people say Josephus. Josephus, tomato, okay? Must have known a name the fact that there had been a Christian sect or disciple there bearing that name. Impossible otherwise. We are then driven to all of the conclusions that Christianity began when Essenism ended, and the change was only a name. I challenge the whole Christian world to find the historical proof that Christianity commenced 1 hour before the termination of the Essenes, or of Essenism overlapping the Christian religion so far as to survive one day beyond or after its birth. I will confront them with the logic of dates and defy them to find any proof except their own unauthorized, unauthenticated, and fictitious chronology that a Christian was ever known in any country by the name prior to the time of Tacitus, which was 104 AD, and who was the first of the 300 writers of that era that makes any mention of Christianity, Christ, or Christian. This was long after Josephus' time, which accounts most satisfactorily for the omitting any allusions to the Christ of Christianity. That religion had not been dropped the name of the Essenes and adopted that by of Christianity. Now, hard indeed must distorted reasons fight their ramparts of logic and history to resist the conviction, in view of the foregoing facts, that Christianity is simply an outcropping of Essenism, either direct or through Buddhism, and even if it were possible to prove that the two religions never became welded together, yet it is not possible to disprove the striking identity of their doctrines and the spirit of their precepts and the practical lives of their disciples. And this identity, coupled with the fact that the Essenes is the older system, is of itself most superlatively fatal to all pretensions or claims to originality from the doctrines of the Christian faith. Now, sometimes I slow down because I don't want to mispronounce the words, and sometimes they really are tongue twisters, and you get thrown words that some words you never really heard of, but you can pronounce them, and sometimes it takes time to do that. for all of those people who didn't know. But if you read, you will know that you're going to have a mix-up on words every now and then, and you're going to run into words that you have no idea what they are pronounced like, but by you reading so much, you can pronounce them or make a very educated guess and understand what it means through the concept of the sentence. I got to take another drink here, okay? Does the body good, okay? It is a matter of no importance whether Christianity was originally known by another name, so long as it can be shown that this doctrine had all been preached and proclaimed to the world centuries prior to the date assigned for its origin, and that it is proved by the long list of parallelisms presenting in the incipient pages of this chapter, which I went over in my last video, those 60 parallelisms, okay, of divine revelation, and brings it down to the level with the pagan Orientalisms. And the fact that it sprang up in a country where its doctrine had long been taught by pagans and Orientalists. It was taught to them by pagan and Orientalists. Did y'all understand that? Y'all, yeah, I know that blew your wig back, right? Okay. Must produce a conviction deep and indelible in all unabashed minds that Orientalism was the mother of heathenism, the father of Christian religion, even in the absence of any other proof. In fact, no other proof can be needed. And what are the arguments? It may be well here to inquire with which Orthodox Christians attempt to meet, combat, and vanquish the overwhelming mass of historical facts and historical testimonies we have presented in the preceding pages, tending to prove and demonstrate the Oriental origin of their religion and its identity with Essenism. Their whole argument is comprised in the naked postulate of the Reverend Mr. Padiox that the Essenes did not believe in the resurrection of the body. The Essenes did not believe in the resurrection of the physical body. And this is why the Jews that you see in New York City, they don't believe in Jesus Christ, okay? Damn. Okay? And omit from their creed the Trinity and incarnation doctrine, and therefore they could not have been the originators of the Christian religion. But this argument is as easily demolished as a cobweb, as the following facts will prove. Number one, we have but a fragment of the Essenian religion, but one end of their creed, mere scraps furnished by Philo, Josephus, and Pliny. We have none of their sacred books apart from the Christian New Testament. They had secret books, as we have shown, in which doctrines were taught, which they regarded as too sacred to be thrown before the public as pearls before swine, and no doctrines were regarded as more sacred or secret in their age than the doctrines of the Trinity and incarnations. Christ's injunctions, thou shalt tell no man, was probably their motto, which prevented the publicity of a portion of their doctrines. And as their sacred books containing their doctrines perished with the extinction of the sect, except those now found in Christian New Testament, a foreknowledge of their doctrines, therefore, never reached the public's mind. All religion sects had secret doctrines designated as mysteriousness of godliness, including the principal Jewish sect and the earliest Christian churches. It is therefore highly probable that if we were in possession of all of their sacred books, we would be in possession of the proof that they believed and taught in their monasteries the doctrines above named. But we are not left to mere interference with Essenes' creed, which did include the doctrines of the Trinity and the divine incarnation. We did find, excuse me, I'm going to read that again. but we are not left to mere inference that the Essenes Creed did include the doctrines of the Trinity and divine incarnation. We find skeletons of these doctrines scattered along the line of their history. Philo himself, an Essene teacher. Philo himself, an Essene teacher. Philo himself, an Essene teacher. And if I'm not mistaken, he was from Alexander. I'm just saying. Where they taught this Oriental heathen religion, where they taught this Oriental heathen religion. I'm just saying. Philo himself, an Essene teacher, most distinctly teaches the doctrine of the incarnation of the divine word or logos and Son of God, mediator, intercessor, and Messiah were familiar words with him. The idea often reappears in his writings that the Word could become flesh, that the Son of God could appear as a personality and return to the bosom of the Father. Moreover, one writer informs us that the Essenes celebrated with the birth and death of a divine Savior as a mystery of godliness, and they claimed in their earlier history to be forerunners of the Messiah, and claimed which would soon bring a Messiah before the world, that is, lead them to deify and worship some great man as a Messiah. As for the doctrine of the Trinity, we have the authority of the of Eusebius that they taught this doctrine too, so that it is not true that they did not recognize these two prime articles of the Christian faith, the incarnation and Trinity doctrines. Some modern Christians assert that the Essenes not only omitted to teach these doctrines, but that, on the other hand, they taught other doctrines not taught in the Christian New Testament. That is not improbable, for the Christian religion has been characterized by frequent changes in its doctrines in every stage of practical history, as was to also the Jewish religion, which preceded it and which is emanated. Judaism is a perpetual series of changes. It changed even the name of its God from Elohim to Jehovah. Now, I want you to ask a Jew today, why don't they call him Elohim? You'll get the Yahweh thing, but you can go further and really embarrass a person, a Christian, when you ask them why they don't call God Jehovah and why they call him Jesus. I'm just saying, I did a video, Jehovah versus Jesus. Y'all should check that out. And if you go to the bottom of this page, you will find that video. It's in some of the first videos that I ever did on YouTube. And that is Jehovah versus Jesus. Oh, I'm sorry. Just go down a couple of videos. Maybe 2 or 3 pages over. Yeah, you'll see it. And you should view that video. It's not at the bottom. It's a couple of pages back. Okay? Check it out. Now, its leader and founder Abram was changed to Abraham, and his grandson and successor from Jacob to Israel. And we have the works of many Christian writers in our possession who prove by their own Bible that the Jews made many changes in their religion, polity, and religious doctrine. This is more especially observable when they came into contact with nations teaching a different religion. Their whole history shows they were prone to imitate, borrow, and always did borrow on such occasions, and then grab the new doctrines thus obtained in their own creed, and thus affected important changes in their religion. We have the authority of Dr. Campbell for saying the Jews never believed and taught the doctrine of future punishment until after they were brought into contact with the Persians in Babylon, who had long taught these doctrines. Did y'all get that? I'm not going back over that. And Dr. Ironfield declares that theological opinions underwent There were changes during this period of 70 years captivity. Even their national title was changed at one period from Israelites to Jews. From Israelites to Jews. And I think they really become a nation to what, 1946 or something like that? I'm just saying. Y'all sleep on MO. Y'all sleep on MOPOWERZ out there. Y'all sleep on MOPOWERZ out there. Straight up. With all of these changes of the names, titles, and the doctrines in view, it is not incredible that one of the Jewish sects could change its name from the Essenes to the Christians, and with this change, modify some of the doctrines, and more especially of their title, according to Dr. Ginsburg, had been changed before the Chassidium to Essenes, and Philo at one period calls them their reputes, while Eusebius says that their reputes were Christians. Put this and that together, and the question is forever settled. Now, with all of this overwhelming mass of historical evidence before us, piled mountain high, tending to prove the truth of the proposition that Christianity is the offspring and outgrowth of the ancient Judean, is an offspring and outgrowth of the ancient Judean Essenes, which we feel certain that no sophistry from interested charlatans or stereotype creed worshippers can stave off or obliterate the conviction and unprejudiced mind that the proposition is more amply proven. Now, we will now correlate Christianity with another ancient religious system, which we are all certain it will not be disputed after the comparison and critically examined contains the sum of the total doctrines and teachings of Christianity in all their details. I'm going to say that again. We will now correlate Christianity with another ancient religious system, which are all certain it will not be disputed after the comparison is critically examined, contains the sum total of the doctrines and teachings of Christianity in the details. Now, we are headed to chapter 32, okay? It took us all that time. It took damn near 2.5 hours to get through chapter 31, okay? So it took 2 videos to get through chapter 31. And now 32 we have here. I'm going to give you all of these comparisons, right? I'm going to give you all of these comparisons. And there are 346 comparisons that I have to go through. And we've been in this live video for 53 minutes. So what are we going to do, Mo? We are going to go ahead and start. We're going to go ahead and start some of these 346. That's a long chapter. 33 is a long chapter, you all. Excuse me, 32 is a long chapter. But we're going to get through this, okay? Chapter 32, you all. Chapter 32. I'm going to go through this as quick as possible and make this as less painless as possible. But you all need to keep up on your notes, okay? In fact, about it, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop right here. I want to stop this live, and we'll come back tomorrow with another hour, okay? You all fine with that? Yeah, I'm fine with that too, okay? But tomorrow we'll be back, or later today, with another hour of this great information that could be very pertinent to your conversation with someone. To be well armed and to be well studied is a great thing when you're talking about religion. You will be amazed how many heads you will crack, how many hearts you will break, how many souls you will terrorize with knowledge. Because remember, believers hate thinkers. Think about that, you all. It's your brother, the MOPOWERZ, where knowledge is power. Remember, it is your third eye that makes you shine like jewelry. And if you haven't done so already, press the subscribe button below. View the videos, hit the notification bell so that you can get all the new videos that I upload on YouTube. And it is my hopes that you all are taking notes and that you all are researching the material. That's very important. But needless to say, I want to thank you for viewing this LIVE. And by all means, don't never ever give up on your dreams. Thanks for viewing. You all. It's your brother, the MOPOWERZ, where knowledge is power.